In this video, we will be discussing how to write the formal lab report for the first lab report in Chem 106 lab, that is the kinetics of dye experiment. So a couple of things that are different about this particular report compared to the ones that you wrote in Chem 105. Most importantly, these lab reports are expected to be a little bit more professional, a little bit more polished, and a little bit longer. This one in particular, the expectation is not only that it be all of those things, but this one also requires a research component where you're going to be exploring the error analysis, that is how close your value is to the actual value for the rate constant for this experiment, and then exploring the reasons why your error is higher than what you probably would have expected it to be. So let's get into the actual lab report itself. So if you're looking here, this is the formal lab report requirements in Lab Archives. And a couple of things I want you to look at in particular. First of all, from a requirement standpoint, unlike what you might have had in Chem 105, all of the submissions here are going to be done through Blackboard. And the reason they're going to be done through Blackboard is because I want them a very particular way, and I want Blackboard to be able to house all of the edits, all of the grades, and everything, so that from a university standpoint, they can identify the work that is here, since this is a reading, writing intensive course. So everything's going to be submitted through Blackboard, and it's going to be submitted as a Google Doc. And so what I want you to do is I want you to open up a doc. So go to your Google Docs, open up a document here, and the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to go to your sharing options up here. And I need to send this, share it with. So I want to share it with Dr. Bruck, abruck at vinu.edu. I want to give that teacher edit access, and you don't need to send a message or notify me. Since you're sending it through Blackboard, we're just going to ignore that and hit share. Now, the reason we want this particular step to be done is I need to be able to access and look at all of the different components of your report writing process. So I want to be able to give you comments and feedback. I want to look at your version history and see that you are actually implementing the changes that I told you to implement or were suggested that you implement, and all of that stuff. So that's what I need you to do. And so that's the first step of this. Create a Google Doc. Make sure that you update your share settings so that I can see it as your instructor. And then to get the link, you'd hit copy link, and then that's what you would paste into Blackboard when you go to submit this. So your report has to be submitted through Google Docs. It must be submitted as a link. I just showed you how to do the editing permissions thing. As far as the submissions go, 12-point black text using a readable font such as Times New Roman or Arial or Calibri. It just needs to be a nice professional looking font. As far as things like margins, and page count and those kinds of things are concerned, I'm not really going to be looking for something specific here. You can see there's no formal word count required, but I will tell you that good essays for this assignment have generally ranged in the 1,200 to 1,500 words. So that's a good solid 5 to 6 pages of text plus whatever calculation tables and other things are there as well. You're going to be needing to do external research to do the things that you need to for the error analysis section. Because of that research, you need to have in-text citations and a works cited page. Both of those need to follow the MLA or APA style guide and style standards. And just as a reminder, this is a reading writing intensive course, so you have to achieve a passing grade on this assignment in order to pass the course. So do your best to complete all components of the assignments themselves. Participate in this rough drafting process. Use that time to get a good idea of what it is the expectation is, how to meet it, and so on. In addition, so those are kind of the basic requirements for the lab report itself. Okay, what kinds of things am I looking for in that? Well, first of all, we need a title page. Title page is just a cover page for the report, tells me the title of the report, which, by the way, the title should not be Kinetics of a Dye Lab or Kinetics of a Dye Formal Lab Report. Be specific. Discuss what it is that you're trying to do with the experiment. So go back to that purpose statement, go back to the objectives. Be specific about what it is that you studied in this experiment. For the objectives statement, what was the purpose of the experiment itself? So again, going back to your pre-lab, what kinds of things were being expected of you to do? What is the main idea? What were we trying to find? So write in a series of sentences what those primary purposes are and why they matter. On the theory side, what concepts were driving the procedure? What concepts were driving the data? What concepts were driving our results and analysis? Might want to take a good look here at the rubric itself. So in the theory section, I'm looking for, give me an explanation of what spectrophotometry is. How does spectrophotometry work? How does spectrophotometry apply to what we were doing in this experiment? What is the method of integrated rates? What are we looking for as far as that method of integrated rates are concerned? What are we looking for as far as the Arrhenius equation is concerned? How do we use the Arrhenius equation to determine activation energy and frequency factor? And the guideline says it should be at least one well-constructed paragraph. This is obviously more than one paragraph's worth of material here. You could easily write a paragraph about each of these 3 items. Let's move on to the procedures. The procedures are a thorough description of the steps that are taken in the experiment. So what does that look like? Well, I want paragraph format. So give me the procedure in complete sentences. What was done? How was it done? Make sure that you write it in the past tense, because you're not writing an instruction manual. You're writing what it is that you did. So tell me what you did, like you actually did it. So first, we acquired a spectrophotometer and set it up and got it running. Then we did this. Then this was done. Then that was done. So keep it in the past tense because you are detailing what you did in this experiment itself. And that experiment is not happening right now. It's not happening tomorrow. It's already happened. So you need to talk about it in the past tense. And then make sure that it's complete. Give a good explanation for anything that you did. any part that you did an additional time. In this particular experiment, you did either either trial 2 or trial 3. You need to make sure that you include the procedures for all 3 parts of the experiment, even the part that you did not do. Observations. Give me descriptions of the physical and chemical changes that took place. So, physically, what did each solution look like before the reaction? What was happening to the crystal violet dye as the reaction proceeded? What was happening in the ice bath versus the room temperature bath? Was the reaction going faster or slower? Could you see the reaction going faster or slower based upon the intensity of color? For the data table and the graphs, these should already be done. This is the data that you collected during the lab and the graphs that you generated from those data. The only thing that you want to do is just make sure that they look nice. So if they copy and paste over weird from lab archives or from Excel, fix it. Make it so that they look nice. Make it so that they look professional. For the calculations, at minimum, you need to show a sample calculation that works through all of the kinds of calculations that you had to do for the experiment itself, which again, you've already done. You just need to upload and make it look nice. For the data analysis, the post-lab questions in the assignment that you just completed, those are going to kind of frame what that data analysis looks like. So answering questions like, what is the rate law for the experiment? What is the value of the rate constant? What are the values of the activation energy and the frequency factor? Tie it back to some of those objective statements that you made. Make sure that you're answering all of the questions that are in the objectives. Conclusions, we're looking for a general summary of the results of the experiment. Again, tie it back to those objectives that you wrote in the first main section. And then error analysis. What I'm looking for here is not a quantitative determination of errors, but rather a qualitative one. You should calculate percent error. So comparing your value of the rate constant K versus this value of 0.205, which comes from the literature. But go further with that. What are some of the things that you could have done better? What are some of the things that exist that tell us why our percent error is going to be high? I know most of you have values for the rate constant here that are right around 0.11, 0.14. That's pretty high error. That's bordering on 50% error in some cases. Why is it so high? The technique itself is pretty good, but why is this so high for error? And so this is where your research comes in. This particular experiment is a classic kinetics experiment. This is the kind of a kinetics experiment that has been done for well over 50 years. There have been lots of studies done about this particular experiment and the problematic nature when it comes to its percent error. And so what I want you to do, I've given you a couple of articles here that should help you to kind of kickstart the discussion, kickstart the research. You need to find some more. But dig into the data. Why is your percent error so high? What kinds of things could be done to make the error of the experiment better? Anything that you cite as a source needs to be cited in text. So it's not just good enough to read these articles and then throw them into a references section at the end. You need to actually cite and use the data from those articles as part of your overall argument. And then, in addition to those in-text citations, you also need to include a works cited. Make sure that both of those things, the in-text citations and the works cited, follow some kind of formatting, preferably MLA, but if you are more familiar with APA, I'll take that as well. So this is what you're being asked to do. The formal lab report draft is due a week from this weekend. So you've got a little longer than a week to do this experiment and to do the actual lab report writing for it. And again, that is just step one in the process. You'll submit the draft. I will kick it back to you, give you feedback and commentary.